Ladies and gentlemen, no, you're not seeing things. I am back for the second of two shows here on Sportswire Radio, and I'm going to definitely, easily be able to top what I just did in inducting the sixth member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame earlier this evening in earnest of with our guest, who I've been wondering about here for the past, I think it's almost 5 months since this man last came on Sportswire Radio. And you might want to say he's been a rather victorious man since he last came on because his best friend, the real boss man, Aaron Jones, had some pre-Christmas weekend because he won not one, but two championships in a row in two different promotions. He's going to talk about that, plus with what our guest has been up to. And he's actually ranked in a couple of different places where he's ranked ahead of a who's who of people that have either came on this show or who have recently won championships in a number of different promotions. This man is richer than anybody else that's ever come here on Sportswire Radio because he still is a billionaire. He's got that in Bitcoins and some. They famously called him the Double B. But now we refer to him as Aaron Jones, best friend, the DBW Hub City and the VTW champion of the world. This guest needs no further introduction, but because it's been nearly 5 months, Aaron Jones might even be watching this, and many of his peers in DBW and VTW and beyond are going to be watching for him to get that same introduction that everybody else gets. So with that, wait for it. Further ado here on the Sports Report. Number one. Global Sports Show from DBW and VTW. They call him Aaron Jones, best friend. His name is Chase Wakefield. Merry Christmas, my friend.
Merry Christmas to you. And wow, it's really been 5 months since we've last spoke. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's. I know. I was wondering, like, where's the time has passed. I even heard a rumor last week you were growing mutton chops. That was kind of like my first thought was, where's the mutton chops?
Oh my goodness, I don't know who thought of that rumor to come up with it, but I rest assured I am not growing.
Well, actually, I would be okay with it because I always in a way, I always like seeing you on TV or having you on the show because I'm like, okay, finally somebody that either has almost as long hair as me or maybe even longer hair than me. So I always look at it like we must be related in some ways, maybe not, but obviously it is damn good to see you, my friend. And boy, what a weekend here you had, and I guess I don't know if I should label it as you were 1/2 or 1/3 or 1/4 of the DVW Hub City or the VTW World Championship, but your best friend, as I said in the intro, the real boss man, Aaron Jones, had a weekend to remember because Saturday at Merry Mayhem, he wins the vacant DBW Hub City Championship against Brandon Castelli, rock hard Brandon Castelli, who we're going to get to in a little while because you're actually ranked ahead of him in something. And then right before Christmas, right before Santa comes down that Christmas tree, he wins the VTW World Heavyweight Championship. So Chase Wakefield, I mean, how does it feel, I guess, to be either 1/2, 1/3, or 1/4 of the DBW Hub City or the VTW World Heavyweight Championships?
Well, I could say I'm pretty jolly to experience that moment that I had with my best friend Aaron Jones. And if you remembered on Vindication, I brought out my VTW YouTube championship, and I promised Aaron Jones I would be next to him for when we become dual champions.
You
Because
did say that. Technically, you did say that.
because I am the VTW YouTube champion. I have the title. I have it right now in repair because our past champion Asher Christ
I've heard of him.
did some sinful things to it, and I thought he was a holy man, but
Well,
I guess I was
it
wrong.
seemed like, if I recall, were actually trying to come into his ring, and he was about to do something to you, and you kind of ran away there. I mean, you remember
Listen,
that?
at the end of the day, look who has the YouTube championship. It is me and not him. So whether he comes back to VTW or not, the fact of the matter is I'm the YouTube champion. I'm the greatest YouTube champion there is. And
Well,
my
you are the
best
champ.
friend.
Well, I guess you are the champion. I don't know if it'd be fair for me to say who's the greatest, but I will say, I mean, like, is this the best weekend of your career? Now, I know we've had you on before. I know we've done a lot in this sport, but I mean, you have to think your best friend wins back-to-back championships in two different promotions and wins maybe one of the most important prizes in this sport, the VTW World Heavyweight title. I mean, is this the best weekend of your career?
With everything that's happened with Mary Mayhem and Christmas Chaos, I think right now I'm at the peak of where I've ever been when it comes to professional wrestling. And
Close to peak. You can never top this again. This is your zenith.
I could probably find a way to top it, but right now I think I'm on cloud nine right now, Mr. Tom Bryce.
Have you spoken to the real boss man, Aaron Jones, at all by any chance since that weekend there that was one for the ages?
Listen, I went into the boss man's office and I gave him the biggest hug I could ever imagine. Well, I gave him the hug. He kind of gave me a little tough love because a lot of people call me and my best friend's relationship as friends not really a friendship, but I want to say that is 100% false because if you guys had great parents, you would know what tough love is. And that's what Aaron Jones is giving me is that tough love because the world isn't sunshine and rainbow and unicorns.
I think I used that actually on a prior show where I talked about Rocky Balboa in the Rocky Comeback movie, where he talked about life ain't no sunshine and rainbows. I got you.
Exactly. Sometimes you need to be humbled in life, and Aaron Jones helps me be who I really am and shows me that tough love. So we are the best as of friends for a reason. And with him winning the Hub State champion, best friends think alike. I was Hub State champion, and now
Yes,
he's Hub
I
State
remember you
champion.
definitely being the Hub City champion for sure. You held that title for a while there, and then you obviously wanted to go to VTW with the title, and basically, it didn't
You could
work out,
say
I
it's a little
suppose.
foreshadowing. It's a little bit of foreshadow.
Well, let me ask you a follow-up, and I have a ton of comments, and I want to say hello to everybody in a second. I promise I'll get to everybody. But let me ask you, though, and I don't know how I can phrase this. I mean, would you have any advice for Aaron Jones, your alleged best friend, on how to keep the DBW Hub City title? Would you have any advice you might want to share with him?
I think honestly, if I had to give him one piece of advice, yeah, I think the boss man himself is pretty well on his feet. But if I had to give him any piece of advice, that's watch your back because if you remember how I lost the Hub State Championship, T3 came
I
and
was going
gave
to
me
say,
a cutter, and then
yeah.
Caleb Matthews, the former champion who came defend his championship, he just shows up and catches it in on me on my
I hate to throw
spotlight.
the word. I have a comment in a second, a special comment I'm going to get to. But, I hate to throw this phrase out there to steal VTW. I'm going to plug VTW in a second, as well as your social medias and, of course, your Pro Wrestling Tees page. But do you kind of, in a way, feel vindicated about your run as Hub City title because we know that Caleb Matthews really couldn't even defend the championship, and you actually were a fighting champion, maybe more so of a fighting champion than him? Do you feel vindicated in a way? I mean, to steal a phrase of a recent show we just watched.
I don't feel any animosity towards anyone. It just shows that Caleb Matthews only needed that number one contender championship to actually get somewhere in DBW. So it just further proves a point that I had in my head.
Okay, now If I were to bring up a special comment here, a special comment right
Special.
off the
Okay.
bat, special one here from somebody that you obviously I don't know if do you call it one half, one third, one fourth of the championship, or two you share
Hmm.
with, and he's here, the real
That's
boss
my best
man,
friend.
Aaron Jones. Yeah, he's here, your best friend.
He's
You want to
here.
say anything to him? Yeah, he's right there.
Aaron Jones.
That's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
actually, I do have something. I want to say next year, I've actually received a gift in my mail from Aaron Jones. And
No,
I'm
no, no,
gonna
no, no.
I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait until I'm back on VTW television and I'm gonna do a live unboxing of this gift that Aaron Jones has sent to me.
So he gave you a gift, is what you're
He gave
telling
me
me.
a gift. It's all in wrapping. It has a big old ribbon on it. Like it's amazing, honestly. I might just frame it up myself, but I'm
Almost
gonna
don't, maybe not even open the box. Maybe not even open it.
honestly, I'm so curious. I want to know what's inside the box. So I'm gonna open it up then next year on VTW TV.
Well, if you want to actually watch that, very simply, all you have to do is go on YouTube, VTW Wrestling, where they have over 4,000 plus subscribers. And get this, their most recent show where Aaron Jones won the VTW World title has got already over 2,000 views. Let me repeat for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, 2,000 views. So that tells you that a lot of people like VTW. And I would also highly encourage that you also like versus the world wrestling because they literally are heard around the world and seen around the world. So that's a reason why that you might want to actually tune and see them. Aaron though has a comment, another follow up. Now, if I
Another
can,
one. Oh,
yeah, should I bring it up for you?
yeah,
I don't want to
do it.
burst the bubbles.
I,
Well,
I want I
he
want to hear it.
he says he gave you nothing.
No, 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 it's false. They actually there's a little tag on the box. It's in my bedroom right
Now,
now, but
what there
it
did it say a name or sort of where it
yeah,
came from?
it said to Chase Wakefield from the real boss man. So obviously it's Aaron Jones. There's no
But
other
it did
real
it
boss
say
man.
Aaron Jones though?
It just said the real boss man, and we all know who the real boss man is. It's Aaron Jones. So we'll have to wait and see what it could be. But uh, I'm super excited, Tom, as you can tell.
I wasn't gonna do this, but maybe I'm gonna do this right now, right off the bat. You know, obviously we're talking a lot about Aaron Jones here, right? Your best friend, and I don't know
Yes.
if it's considered 1/2 or one half, one third, or one fourth of those titles that you may share with him, depending on best friends and how generous they are. It is the holiday season. This is the spirit of giving. I was wondering if Mr. Jones was out there and he's listening, and obviously he is. He's watching this live here on Sportswire Radio on my Twitter account at Thomas Price 2017. If the double champion would actually like to come on to Sportswire Radio and maybe talk about this friendship, maybe this best friendship that maybe he shares with you, if you say that what it is, and maybe he wants to talk about being a double champion or a champion of multiple promotions. If that's something that he would have some time to, I could certainly expedite him coming on to Sportswire Radio anytime in the next week if the champion had any thought or anything else he might want to share and share that with our audience. If that was only something that the champion wanted, maybe you, as again, you're Aaron's best friend, maybe you think would be a good idea.
I think it would be a wonderful idea, Tom. I think having my best friend Aaron Jones on the show to talk about his career in the independents and on YouTube wrestling with VTW, since he's been there since the beginning of VTW.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of insight my best friend
And
has.
maybe he could talk about Bobby Fish. I mean, what that conversation was like.
Exactly. I don't know.
Maybe Bobby's coming to VTW. Maybe he's coming to DBW. He's a free agent.
Listen, I don't know how a fish grew legs and how it can go to VTW, but if a fish decides to show up with some legs and decide to come to VTW, I'll be the first one to introduce it myself, and be a
Well,
little dumbfounded that there's a fish with legs.
Well, you know what? Maybe we'll have to find that out. But apparently, Mr. Jones, the real boss man, now again, our DBW Hub City champion and VTW heavyweight champion of the world, actually agrees. He says, let's plan a date. So I'll tell you what, champ, when we're off the air on Sportswire, I will actually expedite you on the air to come on to Sportswire Radio next week. So you tell me your schedule, I'll figure it out, and we'll make it happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, you were hearing it first here, and a number of announcements here tonight live. The reigning defending DBW Hub City champion of the world and the VTW World Heavyweight Champion, the real boss man, Aaron Jones, to make his debut to Sportswire Radio next week. Stay tuned for more details because that's going to be a doozy. It's going to be a barn burner, a slobber knocker. It's going to be a real one. I promise you. That's one you will not want to miss. So let me get to some earlier comments here and let people talk to you. The man that fell short on winning the DBW World Heavyweight Championship at Merry Mayhem, Mr. Big Tex, says Chase Wakefield boo. Why do you think he's booing you, though?
I honestly would like to think, if you remember back on Thunder Punch episode 10,
I do.
That battle royale to determine who will face
you were right there. Yep,
the final
you were
boss.
right there.
I just kept avoiding Big Tex, and I think I might have tired him out to some degree because he is a big man. He is a very big man. But listen, when it comes to Big Tex, they always say the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And obviously, the way that he fell to Mr. Judgment,
man, that Judgment Slam heard round the world. Round the world.
That Judgment Slam is going to be heard all the way back into irrelevancy where Big Tex deserves to be in, you know. Like, I tried being nice, as you know. I tried being a good guy to this man. But just because he sees me as this Bitcoin billionaire, he's a little jealous of my wealth and my success.
I know that I can as a man that has not quite the wealth that you have, but does have some wealth. I can certainly understand the jealousy from a fiscal point of view. That I can understand. But you know, again, when it comes to a Big Tex, I mean, is he a one-hit wonder, you think? I mean, so you're basically telling us that he's a one-hit wonder.
Listen, he is as reliable as the state he is name's power grid when it comes to the winter time. always runs out of power.
That was a good
power
one.
outages. Like he names himself out of the most overrated state in the damn country. Which, sorry for cursing.
No, that word is okay. Actually, that word is okay on Sportswire. Damn is okay. I won't get thrown off the air for damn. That's okay.
Yeah. I just had to be said. I do not like Texas as a state, and it has a lot of problems, just like the wrestler Big Tex has a lot of problems, which is why he did not beat the final boss.
Well, I'm going to get to more comments on that, but I want to ask you a quick question on your situation in DBW. But you were, before what I will get to at some point, your open challenge where somebody came in that also was a champion at one point in DBW not too long ago, the global champion, and we'll certainly bring him up. But, you actually had, going into this weekend, I believe you had the second best record in DBW this year. So let me ask you then, would that have warranted you really the crack or maybe the future crack at Judgment's title? Because I know what happened in the Battle Royal, and I know Big Tex won, and I got that. I'm sure he'll come on in a few weeks to talk about this now that the season is over. But, you technically had, going into the match at Merry Mayhem, the best record of the year in DBW other than Judgment. You want to talk about that for the audience?
I will gladly. We will talk about how many matches I've had in DBW. I've had the most amount of matches in DBW this year.
Yep.
And I was planning to leave DBW for VTW, and
I had you on here with that as well. That was about 5 months ago, correct?
Yes, and I still had the most amount of matches, and I had the most wins in DBW. And I don't deserve a world title shot just because they want to be fair for the rest of the roster. I think that's a lot of baloney, in my opinion, and it kind of makes me upset, but it just shows that even if you win a battle royale, Big Tex, I'm gonna go right back to Big Tex here as an example. Just because you win a battle royale doesn't mean you deserve to be in the level of a Mr. Judgment or a Chase Wakefield. And whenever
You
I
won the most
lost,
matches in DBW this year, if I'm not mistaken. Your record
that is correct.
was what, 8-5 or something like that, right? 8-4, 8-5, something around there.
Yeah, around that. But whenever I lost the Battle Royale, it made me realize I didn't need the World Championship. I didn't need that. I needed to go after something bigger. And that's why I issued an open challenge because I wanted to see who was bigger. Who had the audacity to show up and face one of the best talents in DBW.
No, I listen, and I'm actually going to get to that. Maybe I'm going to break the fourth wall in a little bit and talk about why you actually are pound for pound one of the better wrestlers in DBW. You had some big wins recently. Obviously, Ace Christian being one of them. Another person who I know you're going to probably take a shot at in a minute. But I mean, you had this open challenge, and nobody technically on the DBW roster actually answered that challenge. Is that maybe going into the point that the competition sees themselves inferior to you? Is that maybe as to why you maybe speculate why that person that technically wasn't on the roster, you might say, may have accepted that challenge, but that current roster said, you know what? I don't want Chase Wakefield anymore. Maybe it's because of Aaron. Maybe it's because, you've got big wins recently, and maybe they see Aaron, and they're afraid Aaron's going to come after. I don't know what it is, but, what do you say to all that?
I think honestly, I think it was just the roster. They say they're like a hungry group of talents, but in all reality,
A lot of them have come on here on Sportswire and said that they're this, and that. And, some of them have come on, and I love everybody that comes on the show, but some of them have come on from DBW, and they're probably had more interviews on here than wins this season. I mean, objectively speaking.
Yeah, I think honestly, it was a lot of scared people in that locker room, and it took someone who hasn't been in DBW for a long time to actually step up and have the Gohans, the no the whatever you call
The
it,
cojones is the
cojones,
grapefruit. That was what they used to always say about Vince
the
McMahon. Yep, I remember that
plums,
very
the
well.
plums, to step up and face someone like me.
You know what? That's certainly, some points we'll continue to talk about. Speaking of people who said a number of things about you, and I have a ton of comments, and I'm going to try to get to
Oh,
everybody here in a second. A man that was here a few weeks ago, and he also said you were the only person that he had problems with in DBW. Mr. DVG himself, Mr. Oh Boy here. You have a response. I'm sure you've heard by now what he had to say because I played it for you yesterday on
yep.
Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. And, what do you say there, Mr. Wakefield?
It's very funny that DVG likes to bring up his win against me and in DBW, his only match as a announcer against me. He beat me. I applaud him for actually getting the W over me. But don't you forget, DVG, the reason why I lost is because the former Hub State champion decided to stick his nose in business where it doesn't belong. And we all know what happened afterwards. My associate at the time, T3, helped me out and gave me a solid. And if it, I will say, if it wasn't for him, I might have gone cashed in on that night. But at the end of the day, what happened was I lost. I'm gonna tuck that between my legs. I'm gonna
Well, you
just
got bigger things to worry about. Listen, you got this friendship with Aaron where you
exactly,
got basically a
exactly.
portion of 2 championships now, a championship that, obviously all too well. And I think that, maybe in a way it kind of comes full circle with you in that Hub City championship, don't you think?
I can definitely agree. Like I said, we're best friends for a reason, and we have the same mindset when it comes to things. And winning championships is in both of our DNAs. And him going after the Hub State Championship and winning the Hub State Championship, that's a move only I could think of. And that's why he's my best friend. I'm
Well,
so proud of him.
well, you know what? I want people, if they like what they hear from Chase Wakefield, to give him a follow on Instagram at Chase Wakefield _PW, Twitter, Wakefield _PW. And if you have some money, which I know you have, because if you got maybe some Christmas gift cards, you got some different things, go to prowrestlingtees.com @BB_Wakefield. Make sure you go there and go buy a shirt of his and support this man, because I can assure you that he's going to go on to bigger and better things in 2024. Stay tuned for why I think so. But I do have tons more comments here. Let me get back here to Mr. Jones, because I always want to, come back to him. How are you going to talk bad about Texas when you know I've been the Texas heavyweight champ for 1,100 days? It's a 3-year run. You want to,
Listen, I know you've been Texas heavyweight champion for 4 digits of days, okay? But winning a championship in a state that I don't care about doesn't mean you're not a great champion, you know? And it's amazing that you've decided to win a championship to a state that is pretty awful when it comes to a lot of things. But listen, I I just want to say congratulations, champ, for having the Texas Heavyweight Championship for 1,100 days. That's
That's
all I gotta say.
impressive. I mean, Judgment hasn't been DBW champ for 1,100 days, and people, certainly give him his bouquet of
And,
roses.
and Aaron Jones, he's a great defending Texas Heavyweight Champion. You know, he's defended against a lot of people, uh,
Well,
a lot of people.
Aaron Jones has been a very, very impressive talent for a while. Aaron Jones is definitely a guy that you're going to see in a number of different platforms, that I am sure that his talents are only going to shine through in 2024. So I'm going to save you there. I'm actually going to do you a solid there. But let me get to some more comments here. I want to say hello to our buddy, Mr. Steven Ganner. Chase is a winner, hands down. Love to see him go for the DBW title, but I have a feeling his best friend won't let that happen.
What do you mean? What? I think Aaron Jones would be more than happy to see me go against Mr. Judgment for that world championship. And I think I could also be a champion next year when I eventually dethrone the final boss, because I've done it before. I've dethroned him before.
Well, you have done it before, but Aaron and Mr. Judgment, if I could, and maybe if Mr. Jones comes to Sportswire next week, which I know a lot of people would love to hear, that would be a match. I think a lot of people would really want to spend some money on. That would be a match, Jones and Judgment. I mean, with all due respect to Jones, would be able to go mano a mano, toe to
Hmm.
toe with Judgment. I mean, I don't even know if the ring would be able to stand after what those guys would do to each other, the punishment, the offense that those
Fun
guys could do to
fact,
each other.
fun
Yeah.
fact, Mr. Tom Bryce, that match has actually happened before. There is a show called Best in the Yard 4, and the main event of that show was Aaron Jones taking on Mr. Judgment in a first ever dream match. And that match was spectacular. I was even a part of it as Mr. Judgment's lackey at the time.
That was a
Um,
different time, though. But
that was a
now,
different time.
but now with the two of them, the way that they are,
I
and
think that
both
would
of
be
them world heavyweight champions at the moment, that would be a match I think a lot of people would, want to go out and buy a ticket to see right now. To tell you the truth, that's a
yeah,
pro wrestling. That's a pro wrestling match. Pretty simply put.
I think that would be a phenomenal match to visit someday in the future.
Well, we'll have to find out for sure. Let me get to a lot more comments here. I'm going to try to run to everybody in order now because I wanted to say hello to different people first. So hang on tight here for station identification on that. I want to say hello to Jane. Jane's apparently might know you, so you might want to say hello to Jane. You might want to say hello to Jane, and certainly we'll see
Hello, Jane.
how you doing there, Jane. Big Tex wants to say he prefers double B guaranteed, but you're Aaron Jones' best friend right now, so you've moved on.
It happens. Listen, you took every opportunity you can, and I'm making the best out of it.
That's all you can do. I want to say hello to my very good buddy, Mr. Steven Silvestri, wrestling's greatest referee from the state of Tennessee in Resurrection Pro Wrestling. They're getting ready for their own show January the 27th called Lockdown, and they're going to have, get this, in a Cage of Hell match. They're going to have renowned hardcore deathmatch stars Mac 10, Mikey Anarchy, and some guy named Jimmy Controversy.
Jimmy Controversy. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
some guy, Jimmy Controversy, who's wrestled a guy named Tommy Dreamer, and then another guy named Pitbull Gary Wolf, and another guy
Mm,
that a lot of people have heard of called Grim from GTS. So
yes.
that's going to be a real live one. Let me put it that way. I don't even know if those guys are going to be able to get up after what they do to each other, but Steven is a big part of our friends at Resurrection Wrestling. I want to say hello there. For whatever reason, Steven comes back and says, Chase, Bitcoin is not working out, buddy. You're in a closet. Are you in a closet? I don't know if that's a fair statement. I don't like to put down guests in where they might be. I mean, are you in a closet, or is that maybe like a Bitcoin storage facility? Maybe
It's
you're in a
more it's
Bitcoin
more or less
storage
of a
facility.
storage room, okay?
I think you're in a Bitcoin storage facility. I'm going to do you a favor because I happen to like you. I'm actually going to say, Steven, no. Chase Wakefield is in his Bitcoin storage facility where he has all his Bitcoin stored. He's trying to figure out which Bitcoin he wants to bring out, which
I have
Bitcoin
so
he
many
wants to look
keys.
out. So listen, cut some slack. It's the Christmas season. We're still in the Christmas mood. Let's cut some people a slack here on Sportswire, and let's give him maybe a little bit of a solid here and say he's in the Chase Wakefield storage facility. Maybe he's even going to donate Aaron a Bitcoin or two because
Listen,
Bitcoin is still worth a lot of money.
I got so many crypto wallets and crypto keys around me. It's insane. I got one for Ethereum, I got one for Dogecoin, I got one for Shiba Inu. I got all these keys. And
Crypto.com coins you probably still have
yeah,
because God knows I still have those, sadly.
each key is worth more than your net worth, Steven.
Ethereum.
So
Well,
I don't know what to do with all this.
well, if you want to, I'm sure Aaron would definitely be guaranteed your best friend if you gave him some of that crypto earnings.
I don't think he really understands that technology, honestly. I tried talking to him one day about crypto, and he just looked at me and said, "Get out of my office." So, like, I don't think he understands it.
I guess he might only understand dollars and cents. But I'm going to
Yeah.
move on from that because I don't want to make this about that. My name, though, is the Reverend Tom Bryce, and we're here on Sportswire Radio with Chase Wakefield, who some may say is either 1/2, 1/3, or 1/4 of the DBW Hub City Championship and the VTW World Heavyweight Championship. And the last time we had him on Sportswire Radio, he was the DBW Hub City Championship. So it's almost like we're in Groundhog Day once again because he's technically, some may say, might even have a share of that championship. And if you are on Sportswire Radio, I'd like you to give us a follow here on our YouTube page. And you can do that very easily on youtube.com/Sportswire Radio 6579 /streams. You can check us out on our brand new website at sportswireradio.org. We're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content. If you have a podcast, if you want to play some live music, if you want to have your chance to be heard worldwide around the web, you can do that here by getting in touch with me on sportswireradio.org. And also, we have a new blog, which is at tumblr.com at Sportswire Radio. So you can check us out there. We'll probably be writing about Chase Wakefield coming on to Sportswire Radio in the next few days. And I'll have an announcement about Chase coming up here very shortly in a while. So stay tuned for that. We'll also have more wrestling coverage coming up here. Thursday afternoon, I'll be with the owner and promoter of Colory Championship Wrestling, Mr. James Barris. He's got his final show of the year on Friday, and one of his competitors in that match for his company, Davey Blaze, just wrestled some guy named James Storm. We heard of James Storm before, right? We heard of this guy, James Storm, and in fact, this guy, Davey Blaze, who came on my show, happens to like me, said, Tom Bryce, I want to come on to Sportswire Radio. He just wrestled him this past weekend, and Davey Blaze also wants to come back to Sportswire Radio. But James Barris is going to talk all about that about 9 p.m. British Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time here in New York. So stay tuned for more of that. But we're here right now with Mr. Chase Wakefield, Aaron Jones, best friend, the man who won the most matches in DBW this year. Wasn't Mr. Judgment. It wasn't Roland Havoc. Certainly wasn't Ace Christian or Brandon Costelli or even Aaron Jones. And it certainly wasn't Robert Pearson. Real quick, I have to ask you something. I wasn't going to do it, but, maybe I'm in the holiday spirit. What did you think about the Robert Pearson haircut?
Jeez, when I first saw the photo of Robert Pearson, he looked completely different.
I didn't recognize him. I gotta be honest.
When I first met Robert Pearson, I thought he was homeless. But now with this new hairstyle, it looks like he has a 700 credit score. His whole life 180'd after just cutting his hair. It's phenomenal.
Wow,
maybe
a 700
I
credit
should
score.
Do that. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, as someone, I shouldn't say this on the air. I mean, you're going to probably appreciate this. As someone who has a credit score of myself near 900, I mean, 700 for Mr. Pearson is probably a step up to where he might have been based off what you're saying then.
Just the look alone can change a man, and
Uh,
that he definitely was changed.
oh, he definitely changed. We'll have to see if it gives him any more success in DBW. But let me get to some more comments. I'm going to say hello to my guest upcoming this weekend, Mr. Ace Reed of the Wired Up podcast. He's the BWU world champion. So congratulations to you out there in Australia. Speaking of guys that actually made their own presence pretty felt, Mr. Jackson Saber there, and he certainly made an impact. But he calls you a moron, though, which I'm not quite
Listen,
sure why he
the
calls you a
only
moron.
impact that Jackson Saber has made is when he takes a step with his one foot, and he causes an earthquake.
Hmm.
That's the only impact he has ever gotten or will
Mm.
ever have. His match with Ace Christian was eye opening, but the only thing eye opening was just the fact that he needs to be on P90X.
So basically, that was basically his early Christmas gift, getting that win over Ace Christian based on
Exactly.
interference or lack
Everyone's being
of interference.
Everyone's being Ace Christian nowadays.
You beat him not too long ago.
It's not hard to do, so it's not that
Chase
impressive.
Bridges beat him in VTW. I mean,
Exactly. And I beat Chase Bridges. So
and there's actually something out there that I believe you're ranked higher than him in, or
oh,
close to it. Kings and Queens magazine. You were basically right there, neck and neck with him in the standings. So I mean, I'll get to Kings and Queens magazine in a little while. But Big Tex apparently says I'll beat you, Wakefield, for that YouTube title coming in the near future. So what do you say to that?
at least he knows I'm YouTube champion. That's all that matters.
I'm going to certainly say no further comment. Speaking of Ace Christian, the Blaze, he says, "What up?"
I think it's past his bedtime. He should be going to bed.
Are
I
you
think he has school or something.
are you trying to allege that he might be a youth still or a minor? Is that what you're trying to do on sports? That's not fair. That's not fair, sir. That's
Listen,
not fair.
listen. He has to study for history or whatever kids are learning nowadays at school. So he needs to be at bed. Okay.
But you wouldn't want to give him tutoring help, maybe? You wouldn't you want to spare your knowledge
Maybe
on him?
maybe I'll tutor him how to win a match, and that's
Hmm.
about it.
Okay, well, you know what? I believe Mr. Judgment's disowned him anyway, so he's probably got his own issues to worry about. And ego, pretty much, by the way, I mean, talk about the opposite of ego. I mean, they definitely don't have much to really write home about these days.
You could
Ego.
say ego got humbled, and that's all I'm gonna say.
It was more like, to steal a phrase from Brandon Costelli, one of his gimmicks, that they've been mauled, basically.
Basically,
Well, I'm sure that they'll have to figure out their future, whatever they might have. Maybe they'll disband, maybe they'll reassemble, who knows what, but I'll let them speak for that. Big Tex wants to say you, sir, got baited in, but I don't know what you got baited in for, though.
I don't know either. No comment.
Now, somebody else that actually made an appearance a few weeks ago with us here, Mr. Antonio, I believe it's Arrayas, if I'm not mistaken. Is it Arrayas? Or I think DVG and I were trying to figure out who it was, how to say it. Then it was, I think Ace Christian was even trying to figure it out. He was trying to help me with it. And he says Aaron Jones this, Aaron Jones that.
Listen, how Antonio? I don't know how to say your last name, so I'm just gonna call you Antonio Irrelevant.
Ah,
Listen,
that was that was clever.
you can keep talking about my best friend, but at the end of the day, there's a reason why you have a mask, and it's probably because you're ugly. So, just just keep on hiding in the
I don't
shadows or
want to
whatever you do.
discriminate on Sportswire. The last thing I want to do is discriminate. So I'm going to say, you know what? That's certainly a comment that I didn't say, but if that is offending somebody out there, let's just say that we really didn't mean that on Sportswire.
May-
But let me get to some more comments here, because I had a lot of people that want to talk to you. Jay Vidal, who was here on Tuesday. I don't know who you are yet still, but I say hello to you. Chase Wakefield, yay. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something on Jay. But sir, irrelevancy, at least I challenge for the World Cup. But you won the most matches in DBW, though, this year.
I don't think I need to quote unquote issue a challenge to the world champion. I think I deserve to go for the world championship. I think I should be given that opportunity. Not I don't need to go out my way to win some rumble or have to challenge some man.
I'll come back to that. I want to basically say hello again to our friends over in Resurrection Wrestling from Steven Silvestri, Wrestling's Greatest Referee. Little clue into the upcoming Resurrection Elevation episode before the lockdown show. Dustin Alexander, who, by the way, was in the ring with Mac 10 and Jimmy Controversy at their last show, Fallout, issues a hardcore hope and challenge. Who could it be? Well, I don't know if it's you, Chase Wakefield, but I guess we'll have to find out on the Resurrection Wrestling YouTube page. And you can follow them at Resurrection Wrestling on TikTok and YouTube. Also, Resurrection Pro Wrestling on Instagram. Also, yeah, Ace Christian's in the house. Yes, he said hello. Let me see what. So Jackson Saber has a response before I go to DBG.
Oh, no.
I didn't answer your challenge because you're built like a soggy mop with a brittle stick. Didn't want to pay the fine for breaking. Now, Cyrus came on here a few weeks ago and basically said that if there was like any type of wind or any type of significant wind, it would actually blow you away. I mean, first of all, is that true? And secondly, what do you want to say to Jackson Saber, who's definitely trying to move up the rankings here in DBW a bit?
Listen, able to actually move up the rankings, you need to actually climb your way up. And with the size that you have, Jackson Saber, I think you might break the ladder that was positioned up to the rankings. I think your weight might have just broke that ladder. So you could stay down in your little win against Ace Christian. But at the end of the day, look who's at the top of the rankings. That's me. And
Okay.
look what are you, like 10th, 11th place? I don't know. I don't pay attention to people below me. But at the end of the day,
There is
I'm glad you didn't
above you except Judgment. Judgment's the only man above you, technically.
the only man. And it's kind of funny that the current champions, are below me. And I'm not even a champion. Isn't that kind of crazy?
Are you basically alleging that you're the uncrowned champion? That there always used to be a term in boxing. I used to do a lot of boxing coverage, and I'd have fighters come on, and they would call themselves the uncrowned champion. Are you calling yourself, sir, the uncrowned DBW world champion?
I'm actually going to just crown myself as double B guaranteed. I don't need to be an uncrowned champion. I am just who I am.
But
and
you know
I am
what? You
success.
say it. I mean, listen, those are college football fans out there. People are upset about Alabama getting into the BCS, and people felt that, well, Florida State deserved to be there because they didn't lose, and Alabama got in there because of, well, who they are. So maybe in a way, maybe you feel that you deserve to be the DBW champion, or at the very least, get a crack at a championship that I'm sure you'd love to hold again.
Listen, when it comes to like college football, Florida State's like TCU. They got destroyed last year against Georgia, and if they would have been in the BCS playoffs, they would have been
40.
destroyed by like 60.
Well,
And
that's
it
also
kinda
like
reminds me,
every time Notre Dame is in the BCS and they go, "Oh, Notre Dame, it's their moment," but then they play and it's like,
it's
sorry for the
exactly like
Irish.
how like UCF claims that they deserve to be somewhere in the playoffs, but they're just as awful as the state of Florida.
Well, you know what? Thankfully, I'm not from the state of Florida, but I want to get to somebody. I want to actually fast track a comment of somebody that actually wants to say hello. And I always love to fast track him because he is the brand new XCW New Age champion of the world. His name is Mr. The Destructive Jack Delta, who is alive and well. And he's also challenging at New Year's Day for the ROEW Championship against the good guy, CJ Black. That'll be a match I'm going to be watching on New Year's Day, and I hope everybody else goes to ROEW Backyard Wrestling does so as well. But he also wants to say, though, more importantly, hey, it's Aaron Jones' best friend, exclamation point, the VT Dub YouTube champion, and that's double B guaranteed.
Yes, sir. I always knew Jack Delta can come on here and actually shed some positivity in a sea of negativity. I'm glad to see that you're here, Jack Delta, and I know you're going to definitely beat CJ Black for that ROEW championship. And then when you beat CJ Black, I'll come up to ROEW and challenge you for it.
Well, how about we just have? I've been wondering about this for a while. If you don't mind, I mean, I know you can't do anything about this, but I would hope one day that maybe instead of that, I mean, obviously, I'll let Mr. Black and Mr. Delta figure out who wins on New Year's Day. But I would love to see maybe one day Mr. Delta and a little company you wrestle in called DBW. I mean, wouldn't that make sense? I mean, with the DBW following and, the DBW universe and Jack Delta, I mean, I'm just wondering, If that
Jack
was
Delta, Jack Delta and DBW would be something special, I would think. And yeah, I'm waiting for the day that it happens.
I mean,
I'm waiting for that
XCW's
day.
got Jack Delta. I've seen Jack Delta in TBW. I've
Hmm.
seen Jack Delta in EBW. I mean, I've seen Jack Delta in ROEW. Obviously, he's been a mainstay there. And I don't know. I mean, I would just think DBW with the DBW universe and the dream matches, obviously, yourself, maybe Mr. Judgment, maybe Aaron. I know Aaron's busy, though. I mean, you can certainly speak for Aaron if you want. Mr. Christian, Mr. Castelli. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there. If that was something that everybody could work on, I realize that these things take, different things to consider, but I'm happy to see Mr. Delta. My New Year's resolution is to have Mr. Delta back onto Sportswire Radio. So definitely, I want to make that clear. And I hope Jack had a great Christmas and hope to see him very soon here. Let's get to Mr. Silvestri. I'll be chilling here listening. Just remember who's wrestling's greatest referee truly is. Well, he's better than Jim. Remember when Jim and Brandon Castelli, when he was actually winning, when Brandon Castelli was winning matches? Another guy that you've certainly seen firsthand, and another guy struggled a bit this year, but Mr. DVG does want to get to that. A lot of comments. One-on-one, no disturbances. I may be a ring announcer, but you know damn well that I'm not only great on the microphone, but in that ring. What do you say to that?
The only thing I could say is in your dreams, DBG. It's not going to happen. You already had your opportunity to shine. It's over. No more spotlight for you. The only time you deserve to be in that ring is when you had that microphone. And I don't even think you deserve to be in the ring when you have that microphone in your hand. So just scurry along to ACW or wherever the heck you're at going to nowadays and stay there.
Are you sure, though, you want to go, dismiss ACW? Because I heard they're supposed to have some guy named Matt Riddle there. It's this guy, Matt Riddle. You probably heard of him,
Listen,
right? You heard of him?
I'm not trying to go down on ACW. I know some people that work for ACW other than
I would think so. A lot of crossover.
All of them are great, except for that ring announcer known as DVG.
Okay, all right. I respect the clarification. And by the way, let me fast track that Mr. Jones would love to work with Mr. Delta. So, maybe it's in VTW, maybe it's in DBW, maybe you could do like what I just saw in Iron Claw, series of matches like between Von Erich and Flair, maybe between Jones and Delta, and
maybe Delta could show up to reunion. Who knows? It is a reunion after all, so
yeah, I mean, I would just think that there's many possibilities there, and I'd like some of those possibilities to be seen on a number of different platforms, including VTW on Twitter and YouTube at VTW Wrestling, where you can watch the VTW latest show, which has over 2,000 plus views. And if you also want to follow Dominant Breakout Wrestling, another possibility, check them out on a number of platforms, Dominating Backyard Wrestling, YouTube at Dominating Breakout Wrestling, where you can watch Merry Mayhem, and also Twitter at DBW Wrestling. The DBW page really isn't open too much on Twitter, but you'll still check it out nonetheless. And also, speaking of people who don't have much egos these days, Mr. Austin James, you've heard of him, right? Yeah. He says, how's the Bitcoin market, though? Maybe it's still better than ego, though, right?
Honestly, when it comes to the market, I don't typically look at the markets nowadays because it's just too stressful on my psyche. But I have a little notification on my phone of whenever Bitcoin reaches a price that I do not like seeing, and that notification hasn't happened or hasn't rang up my phone in years. So I'm totally
well,
okay
that's the best thing you said all night, because I actually want to get to Mr. Delta in a second, but that's actually the same thing I do financially. I know our first lady of Sportswire Radio, Miss Zena, who probably wants to strangle me every time I talk finances, but that's actually been my advice the last 2.5 years. I don't look at my crypto portfolio anymore. I don't look at my mutual fund. I don't look at my savings account. Whatever it is, I know there's a lot in it. And it'll come back, and some of it hasn't come back as much as I like, and that's the best advice that you could certainly give yourself, and I completely agree with you on that. But, I do want to get to Mr. Delta, because Mr. Delta's got a couple of comments here. The first one, he says, Chase, did you purchase some of that Ric Flair currency? I think it's called the WooCoin. Yeah, I have seen it out there. And did anybody purchase some of that? Was it the Ric Flair, how can I put it, the CBDs? Did anybody see that Ric Flair's got CBDs? I mean,
yeah,
Hulk Hogan's got them too now.
he's got like an energy drink now and like stuff like that. He's in like every market right now. But no, I did not buy the Woo coin. Um, there's a lot of red flags when it comes to coins like that,
Mm.
and it's just one big walking red flag, just like Ric Flair's career now.
Or you
Because
could have just said, well, Ric Flair's marriages, they were all red flags and from day
that
one.
too. I mean, he has a lot of red flags.
I think he has more marriages than half the DBW roster had wins this year.
Pretty
Ooh,
much, yeah.
ooh, that was a burn. As Michael Kelso's character used to say in that '70s show, that was a burn, but it wasn't intended to anybody. But let's get back to Mr. Delta before I really get people mad. I just wanted to show some support for one of my favorite guys in that East Coast scene. And wow, I just got called out from the VTW World Champion, Mr. Aaron Jones. 2024 is going to be a very good year.
I can definitely agree with that, Mr. Delta. Just give my best friend a call, and he will pick it up, and let's make something happen for 2024.
So will you maybe want to talk on Mr. Jones's behalf on this one or nah, don't
No,
want to do
I'm
that?
gonna let my best friend speak for himself.
Oh, well, I tell you one thing. I hope we see soon that merchandise for I Love Aaron, because it's been kind of the calling card of that I Love Aaron shirt. I mean,
I do love him. I think that shit's kind of special for me though.
it
It just
reminds
shows
me of the old I Love New York bags. It used to be bags here in New York.
exactly.
It
I
says
took a
I
little
Love New York.
inspiration from that.
I appreciate that. Okay, so then conversely, 2024 is a great segue to ask you. And what are your goals actually for 2024, Chase Wakefield?
It's great that you asked that because I actually have an announcement here
Oh,
that we'll be
really?
making on
Yeah,
Sportswire Radio.
I want to hear it.
2024, I will be making my debut in San Antonio, Texas
Wow, Shawn
for
Michaels' hometown. No way. No, no, no,
for
no, no.
a little for a
Wow.
little federation known as Elite Breakout Wrestling.
Mm,
They have
mm.
shows at this little restaurant called Farm to Familia, and I've been in contacts with them for a couple months now, and we've decided a date for Chase Wakefield to fly down to Texas and make his debut.
Sounds like I wonder if my buddy Mr. Adam Morgan would know a thing or two about that promotion. So Elite Breakout Wrestling, we're
Yes,
going to
sir.
see you in 2024 there in San Antonio,
Yes, sir.
Texas.
Who knows what could happen? I am ready for anything when it comes to those guys. It's a whole new locker room I have never came head to head with. So whoever comes and steps up to Double B guaranteed, you better be ready to be rug pulled.
Does that mean anything to you in a way that, hey, I'm going to be wrestling people that I've never seen before or they haven't seen me? What does that mean to you?
I think it's more or less a job for me to prove why I deserve to even be there in the first place. It's more of a proving ground, I would say, for me than anything.
So this is something that you don't want to be here just as a one-off.
Uh, for now, we're gonna have it as a one-off, but we'll see how things go once time progresses.
Never say never, but
Hmm.
obviously, congratulations here. But I have a lot of comments here because people
Oh
really
man.
seem to be fired. I don't know what it is tonight, but people seem to be triggered by you. I think you've definitely triggered some people. But Mr. Saber wants to say, well, what better than go for the supposed number one on the DBW roster? Put your crypto where your mouth is, Wakefield. Now, obviously, you said he was at the bottom of the rankings, so you really don't know much about him, and you don't want to risk
Listen,
that, that high ranking you have, right?
my seed phrase is very important, and I'm not sharing that or giving it up to anyone. So you got to prove yourself a little more than just beating a lowly Ace Christian to be on my radar. So we'll see what 2024 has in store for you, Jackson Saber. But anytime soon, it's not going to be me and you. You just got to, like I said, get up a little higher, and maybe I'll start paying attention.
Okay, you know what? Maybe he started it, though, the last couple of DBW shows. He certainly made his presence felt, some may say, but I'm going to let that stay there. And I'm sure Mr. Saber, by the way, I actually will mention, though, that Mr. Saber will be on Sportswire very soon, very, very soon. So stay tuned. We're going to probably have him on here within the next week or two. So we'll give him his time to opine. But for now, we have you to opine. And we'll see Mr. Saber in the next week or so. Chase, you're one of a kind, and we'll have to travel 10 minutes down the road and have a beer with the future DBW champion.
Listen, I am more than happy to share my knowledge and my success with the fans when it comes to drinking alcohol. I will not say no to drinking alcohol. It's we can go to this little place called Appalachian Brewing Company. We have one up here, and I would love to have our fans come and share a drink.
Well, you know what? That certainly sounds like something I think a lot of people would, love to see, and we'll certainly see what the future brings with that. Let me get to a couple of more comments before I want to ask you something about those rankings I kind of touched upon a
Okay.
little while ago. But AJ wants to say people say ego this, ego that, but ego currently holds the EBW World Heavyweight Championship, the EBW Pac 14 Championship, the EBW East Coast Championship. So I think that ego is actually stronger and better than what people think now. And soon we'll be back on top of DBW. But, I certainly am not going to take away anything that the guys have done in EBW. But in DBW, the record hasn't been very good in the second half. Since you came on the show, they went south, you went north because you got 2 championships currently, technically, some may say.
Listen, I do want to make a comment there. It's very nice that you talk about all your accolades that you have currently, but the thing is, it just seems like there are just a bunch of participation trophies out there in EBW. It seems like they're handing out all these championships left to right. It seems like
Are
the
you
whole
saying
roster has a championship.
that's almost like when those might have played Little League or CYO basketball, they would get the
It's
obligatory
almost like
participation trophy that they paid for, pretty
the
much.
best way I can describe it is back when DBW, like when it was like 8 or 9 years ago, when we were wrestling on a trampoline, we had 15 championships, and each of us held five each. And this is almost like deja vu, just hearing all these Pac 14 East Coast championships. It just kind of reminds me of the old days of DBW when we just had tons of championships just to
That
give
was
out
like
like
when Ace
participation
Christian
trophies.
was what, like 2?
Yeah, basically, he was still a newborn.
He was still a newborn. He still might be a newborn, but all right. Well, I do actually want to bring up a comment because a man you said that you were rooting for over him, and he's the current ROBW
Oh
champion. His name
no,
is the good guy,
yeah.
CJ Black, and he heard what you said about him. And he said, great, Chase Wakefield on my screen, throwing my phone in the garbage. I mean, do you want to take back what you said? Do you want to say anything else about that? Because you did say that you preferred Mr. Delta over Mr. Black, where I said, at least I'm looking forward to watching the match. I like people to watch the match as well on YouTube at ROEW Backyard Wrestling, and you can see who will actually come out on top with that ROEW World Heavyweight Championship.
Listen, I will say I like both men. Personally, I'm a fan of both of the men,
Mm-hmm.
but if I'm more or less playing a bias in this, just because I've known Delta for so long, I'm
Sure,
kind of playing
the
a little
VT.
bias here.
Sure.
He can hate my opinion all he wants, but if he's a true champion, he will prove me wrong and retain that championship against Jack Delta.
Well, you know what? We're going to find out. I think a lot of people are really excited about that match. And I think that if you're a wrestling fan altogether, you're going to be very excited about it. And I have no doubt that you're going to start the year and maybe even finish the year 2023 in style with that match. You can go to ROEW Backyard Wrestling on YouTube and watch. They're going to have a number of great matches ahead. And it's a company that always is doing things that a lot of people pay attention to. So obviously we're looking forward to watching the match. I wanted to talk about a couple things here real quick in the interest of time. We talked about these rankings, and there's a magazine. I was actually speaking with the owner of the magazine. I don't want to say too much when I spoke with the owner of the magazine, but we were having a conversation because obviously he's ranked a number of companies that we've covered on Sportswire Radio. He's, in a way, he asked me about my opinions on certain wrestlers that we obviously come on here and, to break the fourth wall. I watch a lot of wrestling. Whether you want to call this the underground, the semi-pros, as Fletch calls it, the independents. I don't even know at this point. You can call it the McDonald's of wrestling for all I care. To me, it's wrestling, right? But he's got a ranking scale, and it's a really informative ranking scale. And I think it's kind of similar to what AEW's done, but I think what he does is a lot more in-depth because of the amount of people on there. and you're ranked in two of them. The first of all is the light heavyweight rankings that came out, I believe, 2 weeks ago. And then we also have the general list of the all 700 plus names on here. And, you're ranked in this one, number 556. And here's why this is actually important. I'm going to tell you why. And I mean, you tell me what you think on this, because here's just a few people that you're ranked ahead of. Navon McDonald, who, oh, by the way, was the Anarchy champion in DBW. We've seen him in BTW, his own promotion. Big shout out to him. Scorpion, the Assassin, the former DBW world champion, fellow New Yorker like myself. For a year, the world extreme champion, who now is definitely on a tailspin, rolling havoc. Caleb Matthews, a man you know very, very well, who lost a championship that I guess you kind of have once again. Some guy that definitely, I'm trying to figure out what image or what gimmick or what name he has these days. Just call him Brandon Castelli. I don't know if it's Rock Hard Brandon Castelli, the Mauler Brandon Castelli. Maybe it's another name. Maybe it's the Three Faces of Brandon Castelli. Also, another name on there that I thought you'd find really interesting, named Lance Anoye. Anoye, that's right, and Anoye. That family name ring a bell to you, right? That name, certainly rings a bell. Another man that you were in the ring with not too long ago, you're ranked higher from, Jacob Ryan. Yep, heard that name, right? You definitely know him very well. You've gotten a taste of him. And by the way, I think this name that you're ranked ahead of is even more fascinating because he's a name that's come up a lot with some of my guys that you probably heard of, called Jimmy Controversy, Hardcore, Obey, Mac 10, Mikey Anarchy, Cheap Pop. He's coming on Monday night, New Year's, 8 o'clock. And that's Tarzan Duran. That's an impressive list of names that you're ranked ahead of. What does that mean to you? What does it mean to you to be ranked in this group? And I was curious on what you thought about the Kings and Queen magazine's rankings and where it had you ranked.
So I'm going to tell you a little fun fact.
Tell me a fun
Kings
fact.
and Queens, they used to run an independent wrestling federation called Kings and Queens of Independent Wrestling. And back in January, I actually wrestled for Kings and Queens of Independent Wrestling whenever the owner of the magazine was running the federation, which now he has sold off and now is called DOW.
Yes, Defiance Water Wrestling.
Yep. So Kings of Queens Wrestling was, they ran shows about 10 minutes away from me in a town called Chambersburg, where I was actually had my first taste of a locker room. I've never met a single person in. Every single person was different, except for one person at the time. That one person was Van Hansen.
Oh, and you saw him against Cyrus, and that's where Mr. Saber made his presence felt.
Yep. And I haven't seen Van Hansen in years. Me and Van Hansen go back 5-6 years ago.
Sure.
We used to work together in the same company, like actually work, not like wrestling work. But we worked in the same company, and we've known each other for so long, and we haven't touched base in years until Kings and Queens, their show in January. I got invited, and when I was at the arena, which was like, that alone was pretty interesting because it was like a Motel 6, and a Motel 6 had this little like karate studio attached to it. And they put a wrestling ring in that karate studio.
That reminds me of there's a company that before they closed in England, I used to do work with, and they would have their shows like in a makeshift, like, I don't know if you want to call it like a ballet center, but it was almost kind of like what you just said.
And that's why we met with Van Hansen, and then I wrestled a man named Tremor. And this was my first match of the year, and this was my actual first taste of the independents when it came to like wrestling other independent wrestlers, because I've wrestled independently for another company called RCW.
Yeah, I think we spoke about that, at least the fact that you wrestled independent, maybe not the exact company, but we definitely spoke about that the first time you came on.
And I wrestled Zach Zander at that show. It
Zach.
Was the July 4th show, but that was my first ever independent gig. But then in January, I got contacted to work at this independent gig, and that's why we met up with Van Hansen, and then I met Tremor, who I inevitably lost to. But Tremor is a super nice guy. He's been in the business for two plus decades, longer than I've been alive, and he's now I believe the head trainer of House of Pain Wrestling, which runs in the same vicinity as DOW does.
I gotta ask my friend Chris Urban, who was trained by the Amazing Red, if he knows him. I'll have to ask him that one of these days. That's a
And
good trivia.
fun fact, Mr. Judgment trained at House of Pain.
Oh wow,
So
what a small
it,
world.
it's the same school and everything that I got to go to and wrestle the head trainer at.
So what does that make you feel? All those names I mentioned, you're ahead of. I mean, all those people that
As for all the people
yeah,
that I'm ahead of, it's
it's a pretty
if
good
you
list though. It's a pretty good list. You got to be
if
honest.
you
It's a good
if you
list.
really look at that list, it's very impressive who all is like below me because um you got some insane names like an Hanoi. Like you have someone from the Hanoi family, which
I
is
was gonna
absolutely
say.
insane.
I mean, how many people can say, "Hey, I'm rated higher than an Hanoi family member"? You know,
Yeah,
and
exactly. It's very humbling to see, and it's very eye-opening to see how far my talents have gone in pro wrestling so far.
well, they're going to go a lot farther, and I want people to follow Chase Wakefield. You can follow him very easily on a couple of platforms: Instagram, Chase Wakefield _PW, Twitter, Wakefield _PW, and check him out on his Pro Wrestling Tees page, prowrestlingtees.com /BB _ Wakefield. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the man behind Sportswire Radio. We're hanging out here for about a half hour or so with Chase Wakefield, depending on where the comments take us. Sometimes I'm here 3 hours. You know, Chase, you probably chuckle. Actually, the owner of TBW, wink, wink, Mr. Joshua Allen, actually, somebody on behalf of his company actually posted the other day that they wanted me on for 12 hours. And my first thought was, does somebody want to kill me on the air? I mean, maybe you could take over for me or somebody else, but it seemed like people seemed to kind of like that idea, but I don't think my voice can handle that. But we're here. We'll hang out for as long as people may want to speak to us here with Chase Wakefield. But, Chase, so how do you feel that, the year is over? You're not going to wrestle anymore for this year in 23. You obviously got a few days left in the year. So overall, how do we feel about the year? I mean, obviously, I think we ended it, certainly on a high note for you with everything we spoke about. But, how do you feel about the year overall and kind of how it's, broken down now? You got a chance to process it.
I think overall, this whole year has been nothing but spectacular. I would say it really showed. My goal was to make the most out of my younger years that I have because I'm 24 right now,
All right,
and
you got a
I'm only
while. You got a while to go. We're
I
not
still got a
old.
while, but as time progresses and being a pro wrestler for as long as I've been doing it and doing backyard wrestling as well as pro wrestling, my body's getting pretty brittle. So I kind of really tested the limits of how much I could do. I've wrestled 35 people this year, not including
I
like
was.
rumbles.
It's funny you said that. I actually thought that you wrestled, I think, close to 40 matches this year. I was actually thinking about it when we went on the air. I'm like, I was going to ask you that question because I think I knew the answer. And I think, yeah, you said 35
Yeah,
matches. I think it was about close to 40 matches this year.
yeah, it's about close to 40 matches. And if I would go back to other years, I would do like 10 matches, and that was it. So I quadrupled the amount of
How do
matches
you
I've
feel
ever
about that?
done.
I had RPD, who was the first member of the Hall of Fame. Wink, wink. I'm going to ask you about that in a few minutes. And he wrestled, I think it was 50 times this year. And I asked him when he came back on the show last month, I'm like, how do you feel about that? Because I've known him for 4 years. So I've known him during COVID. I've seen the amount of work that he's done. And I'm like, how do you adjust that? And he's a former boxing champion. He's like, Tom, it's not easy. You have to really adjust to that. And some wrestlers need the work and others, they don't want that. How did you feel about that? Remember, you're 24. He's 35 and's got miles on his legs because he was also a boxer. But
Yeah,
how do you feel? Do you want to wrestle 50, 60 times next year? Do you feel like 40, 35 is a good number? Like, how do you feel about that?
I feel like um, next year definitely is going to be the year of me really picking and choosing where I want to go because I've been in so many other matches that have been like throwaways, I would say, not really important, but I want next year to have every match of mine be important. And whenever I worked at a company called IWL in
Yeah.
Martinsburg, I got in a tag team gauntlet, and my tag team partner was Zachary Depew.
Yes, we know Zachary Depew,
And
obviously.
we faced a team called CEO and Chris Klein, and we beat them. But then we had the team of Mr. Judgment, and Mal Havoc.
Oh
Now,
God. Okay.
Mal Havoc is a wrestler around the Harrisburg area. Wrestled for like CCW, big companies in the PA area.
I know
This
CCW.
man, this man is 502 pounds, and and I got thrown into the most of it when it came to that match. I had to do the most, and it made me realize maybe doing all these, I don't want to say worthless, but these matches that don't seem significant to me is worth doing. I'd rather just stay with YouTube wrestling or go to Texas or go
I have a
to
thought on that,
ROEW.
and I'm glad you said that. And I have a thought on that. If you don't mind me saying this, I
Good.
actually think that sometimes, and I was explaining this to my first lady because she's getting into wrestling and she's asked me these questions. And I'm not a wrestler, but I've covered so much wrestling over the past 3 to 4 years. I'm doing wrestling coverage. I'm doing it for 5. And I say YouTube wrestling, I would much rather see you in because 2 reasons. Number one, think of the audience you go into, right? You go into a throwaway match in somewhere in who knows where in front of 20 people. You're getting paid not even really anything to talk about on the
Hmm.
air. You're going in a match, and your opponents either are going to be weekend warriors or are probably going to be less trained than a YouTube wrestler. You're going to go
Yeah.
there, and you're going to travel. You're going to have to go through gas, go through all that. Nobody's going to see your match. The promoter owns the footage, so he's not going to have any interest in because he's about the tickets. So
Yep.
really, that's a loss. Whereas conversely, you go to a YouTube company like a VTW, and I don't know what DBW is at this point, but it's certainly at least for now a YouTube company, but maybe it goes to another direction. Stay tuned, I suppose. I don't want to say anything further. Or a place like ROEW, a well-run, maybe yard company that's indoors. I would much rather be in a place like CJ Black where he wrestles, in a place like VTW or even TBW, because I know I'm going to get thousands of eyeballs. I know I'm going to get followers off it. I'm going to be in an environment that I'm probably going to be with guys like me. I'm not going to have to deal with a lot of that drama. I mean, not say there's not drama, but you know what I'm saying. So I
Hmm.
think if I were you, honestly, I would pick my spots too, because realistically, you're going to go into a small promotion. And again, what did I just say? Verse being in a YouTube show or in a company like an ROEW or even a company like XCW, by the way, which to me I think is the gold standard of this sport alongside DBW. I would much rather be wrestling there than wrestling again in Johnny Bumble fill in the blanks, Indiana or Pennsylvania. 10
Hmm.
people are there, and your opponent's across the apron. If you're in a tag match or in a singles match, probably should have basically retired like 20 years ago, or in the promoter is going to own your footage. No one's going to see it, and it's almost like you did lose what you could have gained. You could have get hurt. You could also get hurt in the ring.
Hmm.
I'd rather be in the YouTube or the highly well skilled backyard place. I mean, you disagree?
No, I think you said it perfectly, honestly. I'd rather have fun doing what I have always wanted to do is pro wrestling. That's been my dream. And if I wanted to get to the point of TV stardom or anything like that, I would go to a well recognized school like BPW or the New Japan Dojo in New Zealand or
Well,
anything like that.
I would also plug here the House of Glory School in Queens, which is run by the Amazing Red. Because my buddy
Yes.
Chris Urban's trained out of there. I would plug them as well as a place.
Like I would, if I really wanted to take it seriously and wanted to get paid and stuff like that, I would go to a school like that.
Absolutely.
I want to while I'm still here, I want to have fun. I want to enjoy myself. So that's why I'm doing all this YouTube wrestling, this more organized backyard wrestling, EBW, all these guys. I just want to enjoy my time as Chase Wakefield. And if I feel like I want to transition to the next level, then I would go to a school or and skip all that lower independence for something bigger.
Absolutely. And listen, and I'm not telling people, and I explained this to the first lady. I explained this. I'm not telling people that they shouldn't go the route of being trained. I'm not telling people that they should want to be a pro wrestler. What I'm saying here is the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station, your voice of wrestling, the Reverend Tom Bryce, that if you go into an environment, let's say an independent wrestling show, you may certainly have viewer discretion is advised for the wrestler because there's a lot of things in there's a lot of politics, a lot of difference, like closed circuit. It's like what you might see, darkened room type of vibe. Whereas maybe I don't want that, and I would rather just go and be, in VTW or be in TBW or XCW or ROW, where you know what, yeah, I'm gonna have some fun. I'm gonna be with a lot of people gonna know me anyway. You're gonna be, people that maybe they don't know you personally, but they've watched you in DBW. So you're automatically going in with people. You're going into an environment I think is a better run place. You're certainly gonna maybe have a chance to better represent who you are. You're not gonna have to change or stray from what you do. So I agree 1,000%. I say it all the time. I much rather enjoy covering the YouTube and I don't know if you call it the semi-pro or the highly organized yards. And I think that's where I'd definitely love to see you. And you should be wrestling in places that you want to wrestle in.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, there are some wonderful people in these independent circuits.
Oh, for sure.
But at the same time, as there are so many positive people, I think there's more negative people that kind of outweigh it.
1,000%.
I've met some negative apples. I've met people who have been in WWE. I've met people who I've shared locker rooms with guys like them. And I honestly would rather share a locker room with a bunch of friends than a bunch of coworkers.
You know what? This is, you apparently, listen, breaking the fourth wall, you apparently have heard some of my reverend-like sermons on Sportswire where I basically said the same thing. I'll have these British independent wrestler guys going exactly what you said. That's exactly the negative apple. I've had them on this show. I've had them on this platform. I'm not going to say names. I'm not going to say different people, but at the end of the day, I would rather be in a locker room where I'm friends with half the roster and I know I'm going to feel comfortable than go into a place where I'm going to be like on eggshells and I'm going to be stuffed. And, it's not going to be a positive environment. So I agree. And I hope to see you in more places. And if I could, real quick, because you kind of said YouTube and using different places, if you could. Now, if I could, because I think I can comfortably say that there's a number of different places that work with us here in Sportswire. One company I would love to see you in, since I mentioned them, and he also got inducted, which would be my next question to you, got inducted into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame last week, the owner and founder of XCW, Mr. Fletch, a.k.a. Josh Fletcher. And, they've seemed to be working with different places and different feds out there. And, I think you'd really mesh well in XCW. And Jack Delta is the current New Age champion. And they started to bring in talent like Aaron Blaze worked there. Jackson Law has been there. I mean, they've got talent that has been in different places very well. And maybe one day I could see you in XCW.
I would totally love to be at XCW. I actually was supposed to be on the show that Jack Delta that he won the New Age Championship, I believe.
Yeah, Encounters episode 2.
And sadly, I had some personal reasons. I had some travel reasons that I could not actually make it to XCW. Sure. And I still to this day feel bad about it. That's like one place I've always wanted to go to.
Absolutely.
But hopefully one day in 2024 we can make it work.
Well, I think XCW and DBW are certainly the gold standard in this sport. Obviously, XCW 20 years, what Fletch has done, I think has certainly been groundbreaking and revolutionary. And I think that there's a lot of similarities between DBW and XCW. And the storylines, the size of the roster. XCW has a mix of talent that have gone pro, and some of them have been highly skilled undergrounders, guys like, we spoke about him so many times, Chris Jones, Corey Lee, Tommy the Man Merriman. It's, Jackson Law and, Justin Parsley, also in our Hall of Fame. Love Justin Parsley and Rob Slater. I mean, it's a long list of people that, Brady Branson, ACT, Hayden Vance, Hunter Halkin, Leon Lux. I mean, a lot of these guys have been either pro, indie, or, really highly skilled. So I think you'd absolutely 1,000% fit in XCW. Before I get to closing thoughts and ask you that question, so RJ Carnage, are we going to get another crack at him? So we have to talk about that very quickly, because you certainly put this challenge out there, but I think a lot of people were surprised. I was watching Merry Mayhem. You messaged me before the show, I believe it was, and I'm like, don't tell me. Guys in the locker room were actually messaging me, and I'm like, don't tell me what's going to happen. I really like to watch this on my own so we could talk about it, because I know the locker room is going to be wanting to know what I want to say, so I want it to be very impartial. But RJ Carnage was a big surprise, no?
Yeah, it was definitely eye-opening seeing RJ Carnage, the how far he's gone so far in the independents, coming back
Absolutely.
home to face me out of all people. It was really, it's really special.
You were
It was a,
startled in that match, though, a little bit, though. You were startled there. Didn't
it
go
was
as
like it
long
was
as
like
I thought.
it was definitely a true test of my skills, I would say. And I'm going to break the fourth wall here.
Sure, sure.
I am very grateful to have RJ come back and basically run the ringer with me and see if I am uh have the skills to actually go up against the next level of talent. And he's been in the ring. He's been in the locker room with some of the best out there in
The
today.
Inouye family. Speaking of the Inouye family,
The
he's in that
Hanoi
promotion.
family. He's shared locker rooms with guys like Jordan Oliver,
Yep.
Matt Cardona, Heath Slater, all these people, and him sharing his insight onto me was very it was a special time, I would say.
Let me ask you a follow up on that, and you don't have to answer it. You can maybe give me as minimal on this, but when he came back into the locker room for the Merry Mayhem show,
Hmm.
did guys, maybe some of the up and comers like yourself, maybe Ace Christian, maybe Castelli, guys who I've gotten to know along with yourself, that certainly want to go to different places? Did you and maybe some other people in the locker room maybe talk to Carnage about any advice or any sorts? I mean, don't tell me what he said. You don't have to, but did you find yourself talking to him differently compared to the last time he was in the DBW locker room?
I think honestly, it was almost like he never left in a sense with him with how the locker room reacted to him. It was like he's still part of family to us, and he will always be family. But I think all of us are just proud and happy to see him where he's at right now, and he gave me some really good advice of in-ring work and outer-ring work, and it's stuff that I'll be taking forward in 2024 and utilizing.
What do you think that says about him, to the fact that he came into the locker room and it was almost like he never left? I think that that's actually speaks very highly on him, because some guys come back after a place like, and they come back to a place like DBW, and not to say that everybody gets big heads, but you know what I'm saying. But I think that has to also speak highly to him, that he came back into the locker room and he was kind of his old self, and I think maybe that shows that the character of who he is as an individual. No.
I think there's always going to be animosity towards people for people getting bigger, but
Oh, for sure. There's egos,
because
unintended.
it's mostly jealousy. I would see like
Sure.
they see someone performing the way they are, and they were like, "Why can't it be me?" But in the case of RJ, I think more or less it's just feels like the good old days that we had for DBW. It was like a missing link, but I just hope whenever RJ makes it in the independents and in the pro wrestling world, he doesn't forget about the time he faced Double B guaranteed Chase
Well,
Wakefield.
let me say this though. Well, also conversely, I think it also says a lot about DBW that, what, he came back to DBW. DBW is a company. Listen, Merry Mayhem got almost as many views as the last VTW show. Listen, when I started covering DBW, what was it, 3,000 subscribers? Now it's 3,500. I mean, DBW runs all the shows indoors. Now think about, you spoke about DBW 8 years ago, right? Even
Mm,
DBW 4 years ago. Look at how far
yes,
DBW has come. And he knows that better than anybody because of his family, obviously, wink, wink. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I also think it speaks highly to the fact that, look at DBW. Now, he came into DBW and it was a seamless thing. And he also came into a company because he knows at the end of the day that DBW is a company that's worth his time to come back in, because it's so professionally run. And look at how far DBW has come. So I think it also says a lot about DBW as a company.
I think when it comes to when it comes to these communities that we have, you got like they're almost like bubbles, like territories.
I
I
see
think
it.
when it comes to my community, which is like DBW, NUW, VTW,
DBW.
and even KBW as well.
Yeah.
I think us as a community have generated the most story power when it comes to any community. except for the GBYWN days, which that is just a whole thing in itself. You have in DBW, you have RJ Carnage. NUW had Jordan Oliver.
Yep.
BTW have Drew Hood, who is a huge name in the North Carolinas now.
Yep.
And then KBW, as we all know, KJK Fuego del Sol.
Yep.
We have all the, and you can even say AK-47 as well. He's making moves up
And
in
I
New
would
York
even
now.
say VTW. You know, a lot of those guys on the VTW shows are now wrestling for Redemption Championship Wrestling.
You got guys who have been in VTW like Cameron Jackson. He's big as well. You have guys like Aaron Jones, the Texas heavyweight champion. You have Zach Daniels.
How about Cynic?
Nikki Chooch, Cynic, Nikki Chooch, whatever you want to call him.
I mean, you know, all these guys are wrestling indies. I mean, this is like very skilled. These are listen, DBW and VTW, two companies I cover. I mean, to me, they're extremely skilled companies. This is not like I'm watching like, you know, backyard wrestling and, you know, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it almost like the backyard. There's a backyard wrestling nexus. And, you know, God bless them. I respect what they do, but these are highly skilled companies we're watching.
And,
you know what I'm
and
saying?
The thing is, I don't just stick to that community where I'm watching. I watch all kinds of backyard wrestling, from the guys at ROEW to XCW.
I know you do. I know you a while.
Even WCE, IMF. I've watched all those guys.
Oh, well,
I know all of them.
That's a controversial topic on sports.
Yeah, I know it may be controversial, but it's the truth. I've watched all these guys, and I have a list of my own that I want to go and explore out to. But I think if you really want to go up to the next level, those guys got to come to our community and really showcase themselves.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to leave that inside because we're in the holiday spirit here, and we've got a few more minutes with you. But I will say this. I know DBW works very well with VTW, but I would hope that DBW would look at one company a little differently than some of the names you might have mentioned with 3 initials or 4 initials, and that's XCW. So I would hope that that's the one company I would say that DBW, if whoever the owner, wink, wink, of that company is, would it certainly at least look at that company, XCW, and what they've done, because what Fletch to me has done and what he has done to give people an opportunity, how long he has stayed in it and his tenacity, and, you know, him for 20 years, you know, he really broke a lot of doors. So I would just say, I agree with you that some of those companies with 3 and 4 initials should come to you guys. But if there was a way to meet in the middle with XCW, I would like to see that one company, if you could, that one company, whoever might be listening in DBW, to kind of meet halfway with that, because that's the one promotion that I really think is on the par of a DBW and a VTW. And I'm going to say this very respectfully, XCW is responsible for, in a lot of ways, all these companies, because of what Fletch 20 years ago, what he did, his vision. He's the reason why, in my opinion, this is my opinion, that a lot of these companies exist. That's all. That's
yeah, I can definitely give XCW their flowers for sure. They've definitely,
and they mean a lot to us on Sportswire. I will say this: they really, you know, DBW means a lot to us here. You know that I love DBW, but XCW, you know, I get a little emotional when I speak about XCW just because of how much they mean.
XCW is definitely a cornerstone when it comes to this as a whole, not just the multiple communities that are in this, just as a whole. They do play a huge part in it, and I do have to give them their flowers. And I had to say I'm very impressed with how long they've been running. 20 years is absolutely insane.
And they've dealt with deaths. They've dealt with, you know, personal issues, financial problems. They've went through, you know, a lot of things that I wouldn't say, but, you know, DBW's went through those things too. And obviously I want to keep that at that, but yes, let's keep that line of communication. Obviously Fletch, we love, obviously, Mr. Phillips, we love on DBW here, but you know, I obviously want to end coming up here on a higher note. You know, we have been talking about this Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. You know, I get asked a lot about it, you know, and I was kind of thinking about it since you're on here. And, you know, obviously I've inducted some guys, you know, Omen Black and Soldier GP are next on the list. You know, I was wondering, I know you're a wealthy guy, Chase Wakefield. I know Aaron Jones is, you know, obviously you're obviously concerned about his well-being and, you know, keeping those DBW, Hub City, and VTW World Heavyweight Championships and keeping them for a long period of time, and maybe or maybe not that Texas World Heavyweight title. But I was wondering, though, Chase Wakefield, if A, you've ever been inducted into a Hall of Fame since you are a billionaire, and B, if you were or weren't, would you actually like to be in 2024 if you had time? I know you're a busy man. I know you're very busy these days. You obviously got to worry about Aaron's well-being. You got to worry about, different things. You got to worry for that big show in Texas, and, obviously people in the DBW locker room coming after you. But I was wondering, though, as the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station, and your voice of all wrestling, if you in 2024 would like to be inducted into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame.
Wow. To answer your first question, no, I have not been inducted into any Hall of Fames. But to
I knew
answer
that
this,
one, actually.
answer the second question, I would love and would be honored to be a part of the 2024 class for the Hall of Fame, and I would love to be inducted.
Well, it would be my pleasure to induct you, and the reason that it would be my pleasure is because I do think that one day you'll be in many more Hall of Fames. And I think if I don't induct you now, I think that in like 2025 or later in the year, you might actually be like RJ Carnage, or at least, be busy enough like a Jack Delta that's going to take me like every 5 months to get you figuratively and literally again. So I kind of think that I should induct you into the Hall of Fame. And I like to do that very soon in 2024. So I would like to say formally congratulations. I don't know what number we're going to give you in terms of like what you'll be in the Hall of Fame, but I definitely like to make that happen. Besides, if DVG is going to get inducted into the Hall of Fame, you got to be inducted as well. I mean,
Exactly.
You got to be inducted on that. I mean, if he didn't even want to accept, I'm like, hello, buddy. It's a Hall of Fame. You have 75,000 subscribers on YouTube. Why do you think I'm inducting you? And he was like, well, it was like he stopped. I'm like, you're going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And that was kind of like finishing the sentence for him. So, yeah, I would think if DVG is going to be inducted, you should be, in a way, you actually be the first DBW performer to be inducted into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. That's got to be pretty cool. No?
I am so honored to be the first, especially. And I'm going to have to write me a little speech on a little Post-it note and read it out.
Well, I'm glad you said that real quick before I get to close it. That's because everybody else I've inducted, RP Davis, it was fun. I asked RPD, you were the first British boxing and wrestling world champion, first boxer to be a world heavyweight champion wrestling. I'm like, have you been inducted into any Hall of Fames? And he looked at me, he goes, no. And I'm like, well, you'll be in this one. Then I asked Dean Allmark, who's defeated Jushin Thunder Liger and Brian Danielson, the same questions. Have you been in any Hall of Fames? He goes, no. And then I asked Parsley and Fletch, and it was pretty easy. Then I had on the TBW owner, Joshua Allen, who actually almost cried on the air. I'm like, come on, buddy. Let's go. I'm like, let's go. I'm bringing out my Brooklyn accent. Let's go, buddy. Let's go. So, and then obviously we had Ernest Dove, a reporter who's covered stuff in the New York Mets organization. And he was kind of like a little bit like Mr. Allen. But this is an easy one. Also, just want to let you know on the air, we're giving out a certificate. So I will actually present to you a certificate. So you send me your email after we're off the air, and I will actually give you a certificate that actually formally recognizes you into the Hall of Fame. Although Justin Parsley is like, are we getting like trophies? Are we getting rings? I'm like, let me give you the certificate first. Let me get, my stuff, my ducks in a row. And we'll also put you on the website. We'll put your picture up and all that stuff. So congratulations on that. We'll pick a date after we're off the air. But is there anything else that you want to share? Anything else that you want to plug for the audience before we get to closing thoughts?
No, not really. I'm not going to cry. I promise.
I was like to Mr. Allen, I'm like, we are live, right? I'm not gonna let you cry. I cut him off. I'm like, we're not gonna let you cry here on Sportswire. He's like, I know, but I'm getting emotional here. This is like, you gotta understand where I'm coming from. Like, yeah, Fletch took it Fletch was like, well, this was, Fletch is, I don't know how well you know Fletch, but Fletch is a man that loves to talk. He definitely loves XCW to talk about. In this case, he was like, I'm just going to be very humble about this one. So some people, Justin Parsley was like, oh my God, he was like ready to talk about it for the whole show. So it's a mixed bag. We'll see how Omen and Soldier react on Saturday. I'd be very curious, but don't cry on the air. Whatever you do, don't cry on the air.
No tears. I am completely dry on tears right now, but I have nothing really else to say.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, we'll talk off the air. We'll figure a date. I want to do it obviously sooner rather than later. And, obviously I'm looking forward to the future with you. Congratulations on a very successful year. And I think you'll move up the rankings in Kings and Queens magazine. I think in DBW, when the season resumes in a couple of months, I have no doubt that you'll be in the thick of things. And I'm really watching this whole, in the short term, this Aaron Jones situation. Aaron Jones live on Sportswire Radio next week. Very, very excited about that. And anytime you have a world heavyweight champion, a pro wrestler, and your best friend, it's going to certainly be one for the ages. And also, I have some news that I think I'm going to be sharing on the air that Mr. Jack Delta live January the 8th, tentatively coming on to Sportswire Radio. So Jack Delta makes his return, and a lot of people, have been really anxiously waiting. I get asked every day. I get asked, when is Jack Delta coming back? I'm like, he's gonna come back. I'm like telling you, he's gonna come back. So he obviously, is somebody that we'll look forward to. But I have no doubt I'm going to look forward to inducting you into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame at some point next month. But until then, I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? And the floor is yours, my friend. Fire away.
Well, as we all know, at Pro Wrestling Tees site, I will be dropping new merch designs soon. One t-shirt isn't enough, so I'm going to come up with a few other designs, get that going, and there'll be more variety. And as for YouTube and TikTok, I will be kind of reintroducing and getting that more active as we continue on.
Yeah, TikTok. My mother asks me all the time. She's like, "When are you making TikTok?" I'm like, "I'm on Threads. I'm on Twitter. I'm on YouTube."
It's a lot.
I have my website. I have a blog. I'm doing certificates. I mean, I think some people just want me to just sit there 24 hours a day in front of the computer. I'm like, Mom, I do have a life, and I also work at a radio station Wednesday nights, and I have a career in politics that allows me to be, well, not quite a billionaire, but almost a billionaire. And I'm like, I do have to live, So, but TikTok is definitely, I think, something I may get onto, but we'll have to see. But until then, we're obviously on Threads, we're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, also our website, sportswireradio.org. But listen, congratulations. I want everybody one more time to follow you on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter. First of all, you're on Instagram at Chase Wakefield _PW, Twitter Wakefield _PW. And also, if you want to buy some merchandise, which I would highly recommend you go out and buy that merchandise, you can go to ProWrestlingTees.com /BB _Wakefield. So ProWrestlingTees.com /BB _Wakefield. And also want to follow VTW on YouTube, VTW Wrestling. Also Dominant Breakout Wrestling on YouTube, a Dominating Breakout Wrestling, where you can watch all the Thursday Night Thunder Punch episode shows. And I know that there's, from Wink Wink, a birdie out there that actually does some little breaks in introducing those matches. Don't know who that person is, but obviously maybe you could say hello for them, or just leave it at that. So we do know a lot about those DBW shows, but yeah, definitely say nothing on that. But you can also, most importantly, watch the latest show, Merry Mayhem, the season finale. We cannot wait for the next season of DBW. But until then, I hope you and your family have a wonderful new year ahead. Congratulations on being a member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. I'm looking forward to seeing you in EBW. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing you in places like XCW. And thank you, as always, for your time. I hope you're going to make it a lot sooner than 5 months from now. And I think that people like DVG, Ego, and some others will have to certainly get in line and worry about themselves before they square off with you. And I can't wait to talk with your best friend, Aaron Jones, next week live, my friend.
Thank you so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Chase Wakefield here. Aaron Jones' best friend, and what a week it was here for Chase Wakefield, who's, I guess some may say, 1/2, 1/3, or 1/4 of the DBW Hub City and the VTW World Heavyweight Championship, which is held by Aaron Jones, and he won them at back-to-back shows, the season finale at DBW Merry Mayhem, and also the last VTW show. And we'll have Aaron Jones here live on Sportswire Radio next week. In January the 8th, we will have Jack Delta here, the Destructive One, live. But until then, my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the man behind Sportswire Radio. If you're on sportswireradio.org, you go back to your regularly scheduled programming. I'll be back here Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. British Standard Time, with James Barris, owner of Cutlery Championship Wrestling. Tomorrow, I'll be here 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time with Jeff Litwin, the head coach of the Five-Town Sound women's soccer team. But until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.